In the last video, we set up a series of environment variables for development and testing. The only problem is that none of that code actually runs on production, and we made sure of it with these if statements. If we do want to set up environment variables in production, we have to use the Heroku command line interface, which does allow us to set up environment variables on process.env. Node.env is automatically set for us. It is set equal to the string production, but for the other ones we use, for these guys, we're going to have to set them up manually. Otherwise, when we try to use them right here, it is not going to work as expected, and we're going to be passing down invalid values to the client-side JavaScript when Heroku runs Webpack. So to set all of those up, all we really need to do is take all of the stuff from here and add it into a command, all of the stuff from the development environment file. Over inside of the terminal, I'm going to shut down the test suite, clear the output, and we're going to look at the series of commands we can use to manage our Heroku configuration. The first one being Heroku config. Heroku config prints out all of your environment variables. Right now we have none. We've set up none. So let's go ahead and set up our first one. That is going to be Heroku config:set. Then right here we provide those key equals value pairs. If I do literally run this, it is going to set up an environment variable called key. It's going to have its value be value. Then it's going to restart the app with those new environment variables. Now, if I rerun Heroku config, we are going to see something showing up. We just created an environment variable and it's showing up right here. Now, if we decided we wanted to remove this, we could use Heroku config unset to get that done. All we have to do is pass into onset the name key. This is going to remove it and restart the application. And once again, if we run Heroku config, we can see this change taking place. I'm going to run this once again, and we can see we have nothing showing up. So using those three commands, config:set, and config:unset, we can manage all of our environment variables. We're just going to be using Heroku config:set to set all of them. Now what I'm going to do is take all of the environment variables over here and just copy and paste them, putting spaces in between. So I'm going to start off with the first one. I'm going to take that line, space, I'm going to paste it, space, then I'm going to take the next one, and we're just going to move through this process for all of them. The Heroku config command does allow us to chain these together as long as they are space separated. So next up we have project ID, space, I'm going to paste it. Then we have the storage bucket, space, paste. And finally, we have our messaging sender ID, space, paste it. When we run this, it is going to set up all 6 environment variables, and then it's going to restart the app. And right here, we can see all of them getting listed out. Now we're ready to actually commit all of the files and push them up. But if we do go ahead and clear the output and run git status, we're going to see that there are some files here we don't want to commit, notably the .env files for test and development. These contain those secrets, and the whole point of breaking them out into their own files was to make sure these don't get deployed and don't get pushed up to GitHub where they could be exposed. So what we're going to do is close down all of the files. We're going to open up just git ignore, and we're going to ignore both of these. That would be .env.test and .env.development. Once we do have the ignore lines in place, we can save this file. I can clear the output once again and run git status once again just to make sure everything looks good, and everything is indeed looking pretty good. We have the modified git ignore file, and the other env files are nowhere to be found. Now that we have everything in place, we can make a commit with our working changes. I am going to run git add dot to add all of those. Then I can use clear and run git commit to make a commit. I'm going to provide the message flag and toss my message right in here. Setup, test database environment. Awesome. I'm going to make the commit. I'm going to use git push to get it up on GitHub, and then we're going to go ahead and deploy. Now deploying is only going to work because we made sure to set those environment variables already. So I can use git push Heroku master to deploy to Heroku. We're going to wait for the deploy to finish. Then we'll actually be able to test things out by visiting the app over in the browser. Now remember, this process takes a little bit. So let's all go ahead and pause our videos. We're going to wait for the commands to complete. Then we'll come back in just a second and go through the process. All right, we are back and everything seems to have gone pretty successfully. Let's go ahead and verify by actually taking that URL, switching over to Chrome and visiting it in the browser. I think I actually already have it open over here. Yes, I do. So the goal here is to actually add an expense and make sure it gets added, and make sure it gets added to the development database. So I'm going to create an expense from real site. an amount of 0, and we don't need a new date or a note. I'm going to add this, switch over to the Expensify database, and the data is showing up. Let's go ahead and wrap things up by making sure the dev database works too. In the terminal, we can use yarn run dev server to start that up. This once again should save to the exact same database we just saw. On localhost 8080, we can test things out. Over here, I just need to refresh the browser. The application is going to load, and we're going to go through the process of adding just one more expense. Right here, from dev, 0, add it, switch over, it shows up. All is well in the world. We have everything configured and ready to go for the rest of the course. So what did we really do? In the last couple of videos, we spent a lot of painstaking time really just setting up this object right here. The only problem is that to get this to work, we had to do quite a few more things in package.json, and most notably inside of webpack config. Because remember, process.env, this is not something that the browser usually has. We had to set up this object and all of these things, and we did that inside of webpack config using the define plugin. Aside from using the define plugin, we also used the cross-env tool, allowing us to set the test environment variable for our test script, and we used .env, allowing us to load in those environment variable files and actually set them up. Now that we have this in place, though, we are ready to move on to the rest of the section where we're going to continue writing test cases that rely on real data being in Firebase in order for them to work. I'm excited to get to that, so let's go ahead and jump right in to the next one.